So firstly, very warm welcome to everybody for joining this session, and especially to our panelists who have joined in from across the globe. Reneir, I think it's pretty late or getting late in Australia. So thank you so much for making time. Okay.
Good, thanks, Tarun.
So let me quickly introduce our panelists, and let me start with Abhishek Goenka, who is the CFO of AO TAX. So Abhishek has been instrumental at AO TAX for bringing in the digitization initiative and for implementing it across their functions. And along with Abhishek, we have Ravi Kant. Ravi Kant is a seasoned IT professional who has got decades of experience. And I think his largest stint has been with RBS, which then went on to become NatWest in India, has held several roles there. And today he's partner at QGLUE, which is into design thinking. And he's also a speaker at various forums on design thinking and other related areas. We have the next panelist, Reneir from Staden. So Reneir is a very experienced IT professional who's got experience of working with some large global brands, such as Standard Bank, Macquarie. I've known Reneir as being somebody who's very strong on the hands-on IT side, but also brings in the strategic thinking. So thank you, Reneir, for joining in. Our next panelist is Vipin Gupta. Vipin is the CIO of Starbucks India and brings in amazing experience, global experience again, working with consulting major brands, as well as Yum's brand, where he was the head of digitization. So he has a very comprehensive IT experience, which spans implementation, consulting, and now the role as a CIO. Last but not the least, we have Vivek Tripathi. So Vivek is a career banker who's has an entire career in the Indian banking space, and he's seen the nitty-gritties of how the banking has evolved over the years. Today, he's the head of commercial banking for AU Small Finance Bank, which is one of the fastest growing banks in India and becoming a huge brand across various Indian states. So warm welcome, gentlemen. And with this, we'll start the session today. A quick look at the agenda. So we'll start with a bit of context setting just to get an idea of what RPA is all about. And then, of course, we'll get into the key of the discussion, which is the panel discussion. We will have in the panel discussion bot demos interspread so that they give a sense of what we really talking about in terms of the technology. Also, in between the panel discussion, you'll find some insights that we've had garnered over the years in our short journey on RPA. Then, of course, we end with the audience Q&A and a short quiz and a survey. So that's really what the agenda looks like. So without further ado, let me move on to the context setting part. So when we talk about robots in organizations, typically when we just use the term robots in organizations, the picture that people paint is generally this, seeing a world which will get completely replaced by humans and we're only going to have robots. Well, this is really fiction and it's probably never going to happen. But what is certainly going to happen is that whatever mundane, repeatable, error-prone work that frustrates employees, that is certainly going to move away from the human work desk into the bot space. So that is really what the present or the near future looks like, because technology today has the answer to solve these problems for organizations. And so we will see bots being implemented across functions globally and across industries to leave the human workforce left with much more creative and ideative work. When we replace the mundane stuff, people are going to be involved in much more engaging activities, and it's going to be about generating new ideas, about improving businesses, business processes, which something sadly today takes a big backseat. Nobody's got the time and energy to invest in improving processes. So that's what the future is going to look like. and hence look at a much more collaborative and innovative organization. In fact, my own belief is that the stepping stone to create an innovative organization is to really move away from employees all the mundane work. So innovate is a stepping stone to getting innovative. Now, I'll be interested to know your thoughts also on this, but this is something that I believe. So really, the future is about using bots and not about being a bot. The world of being a bot and doing repetitive stuff is, I think, a thing of the past. What we today will be seeing in an organization is a human, of course, is going to be there, but is going to be complemented with technology, which will make his life easier. And in that journey, make the organization also far more productive, far more efficient, and of course, lead to hyper efficiency, hyper growth, right? And so with this, I'd like to bring in our first panelist, Abhishek, the CFO of AO TAX, and really ask him about his journey, of RPA. Really what was the starting point and how it grew. So first question to you, Abhishek, really is that could you explain to us a little bit about your business and really what was the business challenge that prompted you to explore bots as a solution? So over to you, Abhishek.
Good evening, Tarun, and hello to all in one here. And thank you, Tarun, for such a warm introduction. And I feel tremendously honored to be a part of this webinar with different set of organization panelists and the joinees who are going to join here. Before answering your question, Tarun, I would like to first thank your team in helping and supporting the AO TAX to set up 2 RPAs out of 3 RPAs what we are using in our organization. The first RPA which we use in our process is preparation software RPA, where the client tax returns, a basic data is getting prepared. And once that data is being prepared and given to a client for his review and post his approval or getting the document which authorizes a tax practitioner in US to file their tax returns, that's where the filing of return process comes into picture, which Navrik and their team has supported us. And once the return is being filed, then we have to upload the final documents, the final set of returns which has been filed with the revenue or tax authorities to the client. So these are the 2 aspects where Navrik and their team has supported us. E-filing bot, so we term them as e-filing bot and upload bot. What prompted us, or what was the challenge to bring it as a bot, is basically because, frankly speaking, to reduce the cost, because once the bot comes in, your cost is getting reduced, your efficiency is getting improved. The repetitive work, as you said in your presentation, the repetitive work, the sluggishness is getting reduced. And apart from that, you have one more added advantage is your organization is working 24/7 to the extent that task is being processed by the bot, which is not possible when you are having a human who is working only 8 hours or 10 hours. So when we go and speak to a client that, we can give you this deliverable on Saturday night or Sunday night, then clients are being very happy and they come up with good ideas, and even they ask us, how come you are able to give us the documents on Saturday night or Sunday night being a weekend? So the challenges which we have faced is basically to avoid the duplication of work. Just to give you the example, just to give you a brief idea to other web panelists also, that we are basically processing more than 28,000 individual and business tax returns in USA. So to manage the volume of 28,000, the RPA was the major support process for us to reduce the time, to reduce the cost, and to reduce the dependency on others.
Absolutely. Wonderful, Abhishek. Thank you so much for this insight. And I think the one part that you mentioned about the dependency, I think that is also key. That's one of the key drivers, because there will be some aspects that humans can do equally well, but then there is a dependency which is being built on. Yeah, yes. Absolutely right. So thank you. You, I think, touched upon a bit upon the solution. So just for the benefit of others, I'd just like to repeat that. So in terms of what we delivered, there were really 2 bots. One was the filing part, and the other was the, the dispatch of the acknowledgement. So as Abhishek mentioned, about 28,000 of their customers received acknowledgement sent by our bots. And this was done during their tax cycle. And as a result, I think with practically zero delays, before the end of the tax cycle, all of that process got completed. So that's an excellent insight, Abhishek. Now, moving on, on your point, which you said about the cost reduction. So was that the fundamental business value, or did you see something else?
There are other business values which we have derived from this. So first one is transformation change. The employees that across the level will not be ready to take the automation.
Yeah.
So there was a transformation change where you are re-engineering your entire core processes and becoming an automation processes. Then you are deriving a flexibility also in the employee. The employees are also flexible. You are getting out of their 100% in that by automating the processes. Then even you have the efficiency and quality which is being taken care by the automation processes. You have a competitive advantage from your clients. When you say that you have bots who are doing this work, because implementing bot in tax practices is not easy. In US, there are 52 states which has 52 types of returns to be filed. Then there are thousands of local returns. The particular city or local where you are living in, there are 6 states which requires you to file the local and city returns. And each local or city will have their own district codes. So getting all these things implemented by a RPA or a bot is not easy, because the team who is implementing and developing a software where they have to talk with 2 different platforms what AO TAX is using it, a CRM portal and a tax preparation software portal. So the code which has to be developed has to talk to the CRM portal, has to talk to the tax preparation software, and then get into a API sharing between both of them, and then deliver the documents to the client, or then file the returns with the respective tax authorities. So the bot which was delivered, the returns which are getting filed from AO TAX is being directly filed by the bot to the tax authorities. It is not a single manual intervention where everything is kept ready as a package and then particularly a single person comes in and then says submit. No, it is a bot who submits the returns to the tax authority.
Absolutely. I think
that is the major.
What I can hear from you is that you've actually moved from efficiency to hyper efficiency.
Yes.
Because meeting 28,000 volumes is not easy at all. So and especially in such a complex business environment. So thank you so much, Abhishek, for that opening insight for us. Now I'd like to move on and demonstrate to the audience the bot, in fact, which we did at AO TAX. So Rakesh, if I could request you to just show the 1-minute video. It's not a long video, just to give a very small sense of what we did. It's not very detailed.
Yes.
Over to you, Rakesh.
We at Navrik.
I'm not able to see the video play, Rakesh.
Just sharing my screen, sir.
Please.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yes, I will start. We at Navrik Software help organizations gain efficiency and save costs through robotic automation solutions. The US 1040 tax filing process is complex, especially if your organization processes high volumes. Errors in US tax 1040 processing can lead to frustrated customers. Our US taxation bot reduces errors, saves dollars, and delivers efficiency. Here's how it works. The first step is extracting reports without human intervention. Then the bot conducts tax validations and finally send the returns information to customers, all done without any human intervention. These bots delivered business value with agility. RPA can be implemented in several industries. In 5 steps, we can help your business transform to a hyper-automated organization. Are you ready to grow your business by automating processes?
So you actually got a very small glimpse, but the idea was to really show that there were multiple systems, and across those disparate systems, the bots were able to function in terms of extracting data and also validating information. So that is just a glimpse. We will give you a much detailed bot video in the next few minutes. Now I'd like to move on to our next speaker. And before that, I'll do that. I just want to bring in one insight from Navrik, which is that IT budget components, which we traditionally see are, the ones that are listed here. So operating system cost, hardware cost. But I think now it is time to bring in RPA development as a line item in an IT budget, which to my mind, is still missing today. Today, we are still looking at IT budgets more from the traditional lens and not looking at it from a digitization lens. And as a result, it is not a strategic item for discussion. So this is just one insight. And then now we move on to our next speaker, Vivek Tripathi. So I'd like to invite Vivek and ask him his thoughts on the processes that can be botified and from his experience in banking, which is across various divisions. So over to you, Vivek.
Yeah, thanks, Tarun, and good afternoon to all the panelists, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of this. Though I'm not a tech guy, a typical business user, but yeah, as Tarun said, banking is a very, very process oriented and compliance industry. Where in industry, typically right from a customer acquisition to underwriting and then the entire life cycle management of a customer is dependent on many of these sub-processes. And then there is an added cost of compliance, right? So right from a customer acquisition, you have a different system. Typically a bank runs on 50, 60 kind of systems, and where the core is typically, which is isolated and very, very, sacrosanct, and may not have all the flexibility to provide you straight through processes which is connected with core, right? So integration with core is always challenged. So as far as repeated operations is concerned, because the biggest problem with any of the system in bank is that when they don't talk to each other, you need to bring in a lot of people to punch that data from one system to the other, right? Or let's say a physical customer request which comes in the form of repeated queries, like banks have moved to little bots where typically your balance amount confirmation, your last transactions, your checkbook request, your ATM, your debit card, your credit card request, all these are which is of repeated nature queries, has also been to an extent has been automated through all in every bank. Like most of the banks has those bots, right? Which is like a face to customer queries. The other part where the lot of operational efficiency is being built is where the operations cost of operation and the repeated nature of that work, which could bring in a lot of errors, which could also put a lot of pressure on your cost of operation. So any RPA which helps to pick data from one set of either application or scan standard documents to your core banking, because ultimately you create that customer on core banking and then you migrate that entire customer in core banking. But a lot of other activity demographic as typically are outside your core banking system. So RPA is basically revolutionizing the banking industry in terms of bringing the cost efficiency, reducing the human errors. So wherever you have a lot of these repeated nature of work can move away. And obviously every bank has a lot of legacy systems which they cannot move away with it. And you cannot have everything which is sort of API integration kind of a thing. RPA plays a big role there, right? So in most of the bank, I think every bank has realized that anything which cannot be STP has to at least have a RPA in between the two systems. So there is, at least if the systems are not talking to each other, the core and your LOS or any other payment system, then there has to be an intermediary solution. I think RPA is playing that role.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's a great point that you make, Vivek, that it is across the spectrum of banking processes that we can implement RPA, and it is not just isolated to a section. And I think from what I hear from you is that it appears that it's also one way that can help banks to scale up. Because I think in the banking world, there are aggressive growth aspirations that banks have. And beyond a point, humans will be delimiting the entire growth. And if you automate some part of it and leave the analysis part to humans, and I think it probably creates a lot of headroom for scaling up.
Absolutely, Tarun. Absolutely. So this is a tool which can help you to scale up. That is where, when you are a small and doing a limited transaction, manual intervention is possible. When you scale up, that is where the repetition and the error both plays a role. So the quality output and as far as the KYC reporting is concerned, the customer facing customer engagement roles. So everywhere the bots can play a huge role actually, and banks are implementing within this.
Right. I think you've answered the second question to a degree, so I'll just change my question here. So, Vivek, you talked about a lot of complexity in the banking environment, and so if as part of the management team, obviously you'll be struggling to decide how to start your journey. So, in terms of the low-hanging fruits in the RPA space, which ones would you target first? Would you look at something which is more complex like the KYC, or would you pick up something which is more like tech-centric API integration? So, any thoughts on that?
So I would, the low-hanging fruit for a bank would be something which is of a volume and repeat nature, right? Whether it's a KYC, whether, as I said, that within the bank there are so many retail and commercial banking products where you have complete customer on putting in the underwriting journey, but at the end of the day, that the entire set of information has to flow to core, right? If the system is not integrated, there are not. For example, I would give example of trade. Let's say a letter of trade document has probably 200 fields, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is no way you can design a system, your workflow system, where it is 100% integrated, and all those 200 fields it is automatically transfers to your core banking system.
Yeah.
So unless you put, so despite of having a complete workflow, there is a large operations team required.
Yeah.
Now, unless you actually automate that process where you eliminate the people, right, and the exactly your core banking gets the 200 set of data which is required from your existing workflow system, you cannot bring in operational efficiency. So there is a human intervention despite of spending of huge amount of money and on technology and bringing it to two systems. But then, as I said, that is where. So these are some of the critical areas where banks are actually struggling, and they are looking forward for solutions.
Right. All right. I think trade is still an area which is less botified, I would say, because I think banks are still looking at a solution which can do that. But I totally agree with you that trade is such a manual process. In terms of the counterparty information coming through the documentation, it's an area which I think still needs to be explored and definitely can be automated. Thanks, Vivek. With this, I would like to move on with our panel discussion. And before that, just one quick insight. In my opinion, I do not know how others feel about it. They're open to share their thoughts. But I feel RPA in the digitization puzzle is one of the fastest ways to, or the ones that can give the fastest ROI. Because when you look at digitization as a whole, there's a lot of elements to it. But I think if you look at RPA and AI in particular, it can really speed up things. From a development perspective, being low code, it has the advantage of really, fast tracking things. So that's just one thought I had. With that, I would like to now ask Rakesh to show us a bot, the finance bot. And before going to Reneir, we'll just have a look at this bot and then speak to Reneir. Over to you, Rakesh. If you could just show us the finance bot.
Yes. So, hi everyone. So as a first step, I'll give a brief description on it. Like in the finance department of any business organization, there is a key process known as accounts payable. So in this accounts payable, handling invoices is one of the most paper intensive process that demands a constant amount of working hours every month.
So in which there will be a lot of human interventions, and there will be very high cost due to the high scope of errors happening and slower processing time. And this leads to slow result, and it will lead to higher penalty and the delay in payments. So this video is a small prototype that we Navrik team has been created. I'm starting the video. Yes. So here there are multiple supplier invoices which actually comes to the mail inbox of a particular organization, where the bot accesses this mailbox and downloads all the attachments of the invoices. Then the next step is to actually save those invoices and extract the details automatically. So if you see on the screen, the bot would extract the required invoice details from the PDF invoices, and it proceeds for the ERP data entry. In this case, we have used SAP trial version to show you that this is a ERP data entry kind of, like where bot itself logging into the SAP system, and it itself do all the manual work which has been done earlier from employee. Now the bot itself doing all the data entry stuff which is being extracted from the PDFs, invoice PDFs. And once after that, I'm just fast forwarding, it's all the same process. Once after that, it extracts the required details for the bulk processing payment. Like if there are 5 invoices to 10 invoices came from the suppliers, so all those 10 bulk invoices need to be proceeded to the payment, right? So at that time, bot itself is leading that particular section where it actually logs into the bank portal and proceeds for payment. And from there, bot actually initiates the payment, and from there a human employee will approve the payment. That is the decision made by the human. So from the start, from the extracting the details from the invoice and putting into a ERP and initiating the payment is done by the bot.
Yeah, so like Rakesh said, this is a prototype. So in the real world, there'll be some bit of manual handoff in between, but largely if you see right from the part about the email extraction to making a payment file, potentially all of this data entry stuff can be automated. So, how much of time reduction and how much of error reduction that you can introduce in the system. So this is just one part that we wanted to show to you. With this, now we'll move on to our next speaker. I'll just quickly share my presentation. So now moving out from the business side to the IT side, I'd like to invite Reneir from Staden. Reneir, since you have been associated with some RPA projects in the past, I'd just like to get your views independent of what you implemented in the organizations or saw there about the approach to implementing RPA solutions. So if you were to be given a chance, what do you think and how would you run an implementation at an organization implementing RPA? Your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Tarun. And I think, straight off the bat, I'll most probably agree with you and with Abhishek to say the first thing is robotics or RPA should be seen as an enabler. It's not a robot. And I think that's normally the approach where we've started. It's more of how do you go and sell it back to technology and back to the business as a enabler. And very quickly that conversation morphs into, well, what's the best use of a human being, right? For them, it's maybe selling more or trading more, not necessarily doing the mundane manual tasks, either back office or front office, doesn't matter where you are. So for us, strategies that we followed in the past is normally you start with something small. You create that one small item where you can say, yes, there's real value associated with it, either efficiency or, again, scaling out a specific business. You implement it, you demonstrate the value, you take the win, and then from there, I think from there, normally the approach has been, build a sound foundation, your automation platform, and then same thing, a massive educational piece across the business and technology. The other strategy for us, Tarun, has been, because it is, you are looking for either efficiency gain, automation. It is really focusing on the end-to-end business process, and that's again where the human factor comes in, right? So you are enabling people to participate and identify where do we need to automate, and very soon you'll get a lot of buy-in from them to say, oh, that makes sense, and they can see the value. So again, for us, it was build that foundation, and then after that, have a clear strategy, automation, efficiency gain, and then it's about utilizing the people to drive other initiatives within the organization.
Sure, excellent. So essentially, what you're saying is that the organization should identify pilots, implement pilots, see the success of those, and then kind of take the learnings forward.
100%.
I think that's very sound strategy, Reneir. I'll just now move on to the next question for you, which is that, what learnings do you think, from the past that you can share? Any learnings or any best practices that you have encountered?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost for us, it's not, you need to acknowledge that it's not a one size fits all solution. The power of robotics is really looking for the nuances and saying, if you think it was too difficult, that's maybe the one you want to go and attempt. So that's the first thing. And then also you can have a more informed conversation regarding, well, what do I need to maybe sell and buy something new versus a current system where I want to drive more efficiency. And then I think the other learning is risk plays a big part in robotics. We and automation. I think it's only later on where we really started to partner with risk and say, how do you, if I just wear a risk hat, RPA is really a key tool to mitigate and minimize very quickly a whole bunch of risks. So yeah, but I think that's another angle that we, as technologists, we always look at the funky stuff and all the cool tech gadgets, right? But maybe that's not always the right thing. We're super excited when you get your hands on something nice, but maybe it is really looking at from the business angle, from and the risk angle, and that way we found you get a lot of good traction.
Excellent. I think nice to hear that you talk about the risk mitigation side as well that RPA can contribute to. I mean, that's typically not something that I had thought of. My next question to you, Reneir, is that in terms of adoption in developed markets like Australia, where do you think the adoption is? That do you think it is like, is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? Where do you think the market is generally, from your experience?
I mean, it's difficult to say low, medium, or high, to be quite honest. What I can say is in all the forums that I've participated in, there's a lot of energy when it comes to talking about automation and robotics. And then the other aspect, Tarun, if you think about, it doesn't matter to what organization you're going to go. If you look at their strategy, they will talk about continuous improvement. They will talk about increased level of automation. They will talk about data and analytics. And that's a sweet spot where automation and RPA plays in. So yes, it's a topic that's definitely discussed across all organizations.
Sure.
Doesn't matter what industry. And there's a lot of active organizations, in Australia, helping to implement solutions and have those conversations.
Excellent. Thank you, Reneir. Thank you so much for your insights. We now move on to the next section. I'll quickly share my slide as well. Just hold on, please. A quick insight in terms of how we see the RPA implementation. One aspect we'd like to talk about is having the ROI discussion upfront. It's important before you get into the implementation side. The RPA should be, quantified to as much as degree as possible. And because with RPA, I've seen it is still possible. With a lot of other IT implementations, it was never that easy. But with RPA, because you can quantify hours saved, efficiency brought in. So it's good practice is that before starting the journey, have a discussion around the ROI as well. RPA, as a lot of these speakers have spoken about, is that it is across industries and across functions. So practically, there are very few functions which cannot be touched by RPA. Moving on to our next panelist, I would like to ask Vipin to weigh in on his thoughts about more from his experience and his current role as CIO when he's overseeing, technology usage across departments. Is there any specific department that he feels that probably needs most of RPA? And so his thoughts on that. Over to you, Vipin.
Hi, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone on the panel, and also everyone who's participating. I think this question is really depends on an organization, and I think in terms of as other panelists have already also highlighted, the framework is largely which organization in terms of where they are in terms of their maturity of business and where they can find the repeatable processes, whether it's HR, whether it's finance, whether it's even outside of that. One of the unique use cases that we have been thinking of is actually menu management, because we have let's say 250 SKU items with like hundreds of modifiers in terms of syrups and add-ons, and then each of these menu has to go have probably 12 different clusters and 4 different channels in terms of Zomato, Swiggy, our app, and this, if you do the maths, it's actually comes out to about 60,000-70,000 unique line items, which and then you have to maintain all the pricing, the taxation, everything across all of that. And it's a fairly repeatable process in terms of right from category to SAP team to then actually the e-commerce management teams who manage all of this. So it's basically, I think I would say all about where you can find repeatable processes, especially in context of QSR menu management. I already talked about. There could be other areas also in terms of let's say, for example, because we are a distributed model. So something like employee onboarding can be another one, because a lot of the hiring is actually happening locally. So we are opening stores from Ludhiana to Calicut to Guwahati, and a lot of these hirings are happening actually locally in the local region. So to be able to have a process which is repeatable and automated takes away a lot of the pressure from the store managers and the district managers, because there's a lot of in case a lot of documentation which is required to be kept from a legal standpoint also for all the employees which are coming in and joining us. So HR could be another one. Finance stands for us at least a major one, because in finance, revenue reconciliation similar to menu management also is actually a very big use case where you are actually, and especially in case of aggregator management, loyalty management, revenue reconciliation and card balance reconciliation management is a fairly big use case where you have to then make sure that whatever revenue is getting generated on the aggregator platforms, then we're actually getting the exact amount, because there's a lot of nuances to that. And similarly in the card space also, whatever card balances that are actually getting loaded, we are actually reflecting all those revenue in our ERP systems as well. So just to be combined, so then all the HR, finance, and the general sort of general miscellaneous use cases, all three are there for us. It just, as I said, depends on the maturity, the overall roadmap, the overall priority, where do we see the most value and the business demand for that. I think that's what defines which one gets picked up first.
Got it. Thanks, Vipin. The next question is around, I think the primary focus. So what would you see? I mean, if you were to choose one, cost saving, error reduction, 24/7 operation. So make a decision to go for RPA, what would be your key driver?
It's actually very interesting because the one which I was about to say is probably not mentioned here, because for us, I think, as I was saying, in the store operations, if I can free up the partner time, partner is our store operator in Starbucks parlance, we call them partners. So if I can free up their partners' time to be able to actually focus on consumer service and spending time with consumer, that is my goal.
Wow.
Because see, in smaller organizations, a lot of these processes are already outsourced, like HR, standard payroll processing and claims processing, and finance, a lot of the PO processing and everything are already outsourced to independent agencies. So the cost savings are there, but I think it's largely incremental. And hence you wouldn't see a lot of strong RPA deployment. At least for us, it has not picked up yet. But for me, in the stores, if I can, let's say, inventory management is another process in the stores where we could think of an RPA where every day, end of the day, the partner has to go and capture inventory for all like the perishable, non-perishable items, and then actually enter in the ERP systems. If a lot of that can be automated and we can free up partners' time to do more higher value-added work, which is either spending time on coaching other partners or spending time with employees, I think that will be our sort of benchmark in terms of whether we pick up or not.
Sure, excellent, Vipin. I think that's a good insight. I think we probably are running out a little bit on time, but just quick thoughts, Vipin, on some of the challenges that you envisage from an implementation standpoint.
I think our challenges would not be very different than other organizations in terms of any other digital project, I would say. So 2 points I would say. One is actually the showing the business value or showing the ROI is a lot more difficult for us because, let's say, if I were to pick up in finance, most of the repeatable processes which are relatively more like transactional are already outsourced to an external partner. Now that external partner may or may have his own journey of getting RPA. So now when we have to go and implement, we have to really, it's actually become even harder because then I have to convince the partner saying, okay, let's do RPA. And by the way, whatever benefits we get, we mutually share. So if I were to if I'm building, let's say, 70 new stores next year, that means I need to have 3 more people in my account claims processing or accounts payable sort of function with the vendor. And tomorrow, if I'm building a case that, okay, if I do RPA, then I will still go for, maybe incremental revenue for you. But then I actually do, it is not as much as like adding 3 people versus maybe the effective cost is, let's say, 1 or 1.5. So we mutually share the benefit. So I think that's where it becomes a little bit more challenging because, as I said, the partners are, the vendors are then in their own journey, and then we have to work with them to sort of co-invest in this case and to convince them that this is the right thing for them, which will yield value for both organizations. And then I think, and then the second one remains, which again, change management, and especially in context of retail and QSR, it actually becomes more aggravated because when we are talking about, we are dealing with the store staff with a very different kind of skill sets and in sort of frame, my mental frame and their KPIs and priorities. For us, store partners, even if you have to go and implement, do a minor change in the day-to-day schedule, it actually becomes quite a bit a challenge. So changing anything on the stores, the change management effort is like very significant for us, and then obviously showing the business value because, as I said, a lot of these costs which are spent in the processes are already very low. That RPA will struggle to sort of show incremental value.
Got it. So now this is a very interesting challenge that you put across, which is the need to co-create with your I would say outsource partners. Which is it's not going to be easy. So yeah, that definitely is an I would say impediment. But interesting insights from you, Vipin. Thank you so much. We now move in just one quick thought from our partners, UiPath, which and they really talk about in terms of the approach, having a hybrid approach. So as opposed to having either only a top-down or a bottom-up approach to identifying RPA processes and even to implementing it, their thought is really about a hybrid approach, in which I do think, I concur with that if one looks at automating processes, it will be good to have a forum in which you have your end users, your on-ground users, along with the management team to sit down and really identify which areas can be fortified. So I think typically, because in organizations we see the binary approach, either which is top down with the management saying, okay, replace a system, improve a system, or users saying that, we are struggling. So I think the answer really is to have a hybrid approach. That's just one insight that we wanted to share. Quickly, just a view on what RPA capabilities are for various industries. So it could be right from industry solutions to business operations. You can have product accelerators today because we are already in an automated world. We have large monolithic systems. It's not that the systems aren't there. It's just that there is a need to fortify them, improve the efficiency. Hence, today, in terms of the product players, they have gone ahead and developed a lot of accelerators which can help improve the efficiency on that technology that you're using. So if you're using SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, there are a lot of these accelerators that can be implemented to improve or fine-tune the thing. So the way I see it, RPA is like the engine oil, to be put between the wheels to just reduce the friction. So that's really what RPA essentially does. Just some thoughts before I move on to our last but not the least, Ravi Kant, for his thoughts on really the people side of it, because I think we've not touched upon that. Because this change eventually does impact people. So what, Ravikant, do you think that, should be the change management of the people strategies, and also bringing in your thoughts about design thinking, which I think, are very relevant in this area. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tarun. First of all, good evening, everybody, and good evening to all the panelists as well as people who have joined in. And congratulations to you, Tarun, for arranging such a wonderful webinar, inviting some of the stalwart from the business and the technology side. So as Tarun mentioned about my experiences, so I come from the background of banking, technology, and people leadership, which really gave me an insight into the real corporate and the business world. So my job has been largely, in the last 25 years, has been towards the problem solving thing. So now coming back to the RPA. So by the way, I'm also UiPath certified. And when I was in RBS, I was given the responsibility to set up the Center of Excellence in the automation space. So I got introduced to RPA through OpenSpan, which was a screen scraping tool, and then moved to UiPath, and then now it is integrated with AI and so on. So with respect to people impact with RPA, RPA is like any other change. So RPA has a bigger impact on people with respect to three things which I talk about. So whenever RPA is being implemented, there is an impact on people, and there is a lot of anxiety and stress on people when that change is being introduced in an organization. People see that if automation is done, there are three ways it will be impacted. Number one, the way they have been delivering and creating value for their customers, they may have to work alongside with bots. So it will change the way they have been delivering and creating value for the customer. Second is they will maybe given some different role or responsibility, which will be more largely to do with participating at the strategic work, or which will create more value at the organization level. So there might be a change in the role, what they have been doing for many years. So that is another impact will people have. And third, in some cases, depending upon organization strategy, people may be lose job in some cases. So if I look at it, RPA definitely have a big impact on people, and like any other team management initiative which you run in an organization. Now, when we look at design thinking, a framework which is a human-centered approach to innovation, empathy is the key. Empathy is the key when we implement design thinking. So in this particular case, whenever you're introducing RPA, or whenever you identify the opportunity where you are automating some processes, first and the foremost thing which I suggest organizations should do is to spend time to understand who are the people who are going to be impacted. It could be your employees, it could be other stakeholders. And then with the structured process of design thinking, through some qualitative research, you really spend time with people who are going to be impacted to understand what really matters to them. You gain deeper understanding of how they think and feel, how this change is going to be implemented and having an impact on them. And that understanding will help you to empathize with them. And with that understanding, you need to design the process and the implementation which really resonate with the needs and the expectations of people who are really going to be impacted. And there are a set of principles, there are a set of tools, there are a set of structures which can be used when you are implementing RPA, which will really help to give comfort to people who are going through this process. And that's what design thinking is all about. It is people first and customer first is one of the key aspects of design thinking. And empathy is the key ingredient throughout the design thinking process, which is what is the core of design thinking and which can really help you to really understand what matters to people and design your process and implementation accordingly.
Excellent. I think that's a very good thought. And I think, mostly that gets left out, or it's an afterthought about looking at the people side. Whereas if you're looking at the implementation, which is transformational, as most of the panelists talked about, it's important to bring in the people aspect early on. As you rightly mentioned, the empathy part of it, it can be very difficult to manage empathy if it is left out towards the end, when you would have to grapple with it. It cannot be easy because those anxieties have already crept in, and then you are trying to firefight, which can be difficult from a people side. So I think that's a great thought that, look at the empathy side of it, the design thinking side of it early on. So I think that's an excellent input. Thank you so much. I think, so this was the second question. Now, the other part which I wanted to get from you, Ravi, was that do you think that CXOs globally, what do they think about RPA in general? That is it still very tactical, looking at isolated processes, or has it now reached the board discussions or senior management discussions where they're saying that it needs to get some strategic importance? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as within my network, when I talk to some of the CXOs working in the banking and financial domain or other industries, so one of the key things which really I hear is RPA is definitely one of the strategic initiatives as a part of their digital transformation program. So whenever organizations are getting into the digital transformation, RPA is one of the starting points in order to really capture the low-hanging fruit. And then taking on to from here is other areas where they can really bring the change, the way they operate and deliver value to the customers, is when they look at other technologies which can really give them some value at the organization level or at the customer level and so on. So I see that, yes, it is a part of the strategy, but other thing which I see is if it has not been implemented in a right way, it has, even if it has not been thought through with respect to what is our RPA strategy, which are the areas we want to really start implementing it, what kind of capabilities we need to have, which is the tool which will be the tool which we want to use it now and in future and so on. If those things are not considered in a right way, then it could also mess up some of the digital transformation initiatives in any organization.
Sure. I think that's a good point to keep into mind. The success of the RPA will drive further initiatives. So I think if you, as they say, well begun is half done. So, start well, see the success, and then hope to replicate that. Yeah. So I think with that, we end our panel discussion. Just a quick summary, the way we see it is RPA brings in a set of tangible as well as intangible benefits. Of course, on the tangible side, you see a lot of improvement in KPIs, quality of data, efficiency, etc. But at the end of the day, it also probably, I think the practitioners here would be better equipped to answer that there is also a lot of intangible benefit that comes through because of RPA, which could be, the stakeholder satisfaction, the employee satisfaction, because eventually, you want to, as Reneir rightly said, you want to have employees do what they are best at. So if you're good at sales, get more time to do sales. if you are into, say, even business analysis, instead of struggling with information across systems, you do what you're good at, business analysis. So I think that there's a fair bit of balance in terms of the benefits. There's tangible as well as intangible output that one can get. With this, we wrap up the panel discussion, and I think in terms of time, I think we probably just got few minutes, but I'll just open the floor. Rakesh, so I would request people to ask the questions, and if you could raise your hand, then we will unmute you. Any questions? We don't see any hands yet. I don't think so. Some of the people had to leave early, so I think they're not here. Any question?
To start off with, I have a question for Abhishek.
Yeah, I think there's a hand raise, Rakesh. If you could just unmute. I think that's Pooja, if I'm not wrong.
No, sir.
There is a hand raise. Yeah. Pooja, yes.
Yeah, hi Tarun. Hi everybody. So Tarun sir, I actually don't have a question. I have read about the RPA in my industry experience, and this session was really informative. So on behalf of IIM Lucknow Noida campus, I wanted to thank you for inviting us for this webinar. This was really informative, and many of us were new to this RPA technology. So it was a great informative learning for all of us, and I wanted to thank you and the entire team for inviting us for this webinar.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Thank you so much for your comments. We hope to share a report also with all the information, so that will add to the your knowledge base on this.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Yeah, Rakesh, over to you for a question.
Yes. Hi, Abhishek. So earlier you mentioned that your employees were actually not ready for this implementation of automation, right? So it's the same case before 15 to 20 years, I think, as well. Like when the softwares were coming up, like earlier, before 15 to 20 years, the people were working manually. And when the softwares were coming up, people said, oh no, why these are the softwares? We will actually lose our jobs, like that. They actually reacted. But now that software keyword is it's everywhere. It's in our phone, it's in our system, everywhere. So do you think this is the starting point of RPA, same like a software, where Tarun sir also mentioned it, like it is a engine oil kind of thing, where it's fasten up the process for a higher productivity. So I need to know how, like few years back you implemented automation, right? So as a first step, how your whole team reacted to it, basically how was your employee satisfaction is like? Actually, Abhishek, you are on mute, I think.
Yeah, you will have. Should I unmute?
Yeah. Now you can hear me, Rakesh.
Yes,
we can.
Yeah. So I'll just bring up what Kant sir said, that the people impact in RPA is a big empathy which you have to show to the employee, because a particular process, as I said, the e-filing, the processes which you have implemented is e-filing and upload bot, which we have called them.
Yes.
So before implementation of these two RPA, we used to have 35 to 40 employees to process 25, 28, 30,000 returns.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
By implementing RPA, that has come down to 15-member team.
Okay.
So which has impacted 20-member team. And when we were implementing it, so the employees who are who are not performing well, or who are less experienced in the organization, they always feel that their job is at risk. But by implementing this, what we are doing is we are strengthening the other processes where we cannot implement RPA right now. So by giving that empathy, that has helped us to build in the RPA process more efficiently and effectively. So, and has Abhishek, not been a... Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you. I just wanted to ask you that does it mean that as part of the strategy and especially on the people side, should one also look at retraining as an area as one enters into this space?
Yeah, we have to retrain, and apart from that, when the RPA is coming up, the RPA can be developed and coded only when a particular team gives you that insight. A particular developer may not be well aware of how the tax processes work. If I talk about from an AO tax perspective, he may not be aware of how the tax process works. When should he say that if a client has said that, no, I want my tax due to be auto-deducted from bank account, should the RPA look into the auto-debit date, or it should not look into the auto-debit date? So that's where, so when the employees are coming out, they would be required at some point of time to give that insight how to build that RPA. Sure. And moving out from there, they have to be part of the RPA backend team where they are giving that insights to them and preparing that PDD. Basically, they have to prepare the process definition documents to help them.
So, Tarun, just to add, like what Abhishek said, is of course I shared like empathy is the key, and so there are two aspects to it. Abhishek, correct me if I have not understood correctly. Is one is definitely people who have been part of that process have to be included when that RPA implementation is going on, because they come with a lot of experience on that process, which is very useful, that needs to be transitioned to technology people or people who are implementing it so that the process has been implemented in a right way. So we need that support. However, we also know there are people who may be asked to go in some cases. So we need to manage and balance in such a way that we are able to gather that information, plus we are able to show them some roadmap. We are able to show them some path for them for future so that they feel comfortable, so that their anxiety level, their stress level are low, so that they can contribute and support during the implementation process. And if organization can really spend time in the early days to identify who are the people impacted and have a clear roadmap and direction on each individual who is being impacted, and that has to be communicated in an empathetic way, can really help you to implement RPA in a successful way, as well as it will give all the employees, whether they are working now or if they leave, they will go with a positive feedback about the organization and so on. That's what I wanted to share, Abhishek. Is that the right understanding?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is a right understanding.
I think, thank you so much, gentlemen. I think excellent end to the panel discussion. We had some amazing insights coming in from different areas, from business, from IT, and I would say insights coming in from real experience. So I hope that the audience was able to benefit from it. So towards the end, as as we had mentioned earlier, that we'll be having a short quiz. So I would request Rakesh to play the quiz and also the survey questionnaire.
Yes.
I think we've had a lot of audience dropouts because we've exceeded the time, but I think we'll just spend 2 minutes before we wrap up.
Yes. So here there are 4 questions totally. One question will have 15 seconds to answer. If you I've launched the quiz, you will see a Slido app icon which is popping.
Yeah, Rakesh, I think you can just start it. People will be able to understand it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, there is a first question with quite fun question as to start off. Okay. So the answer is Will Smith, not Rajnikant. So next question. What is the RPA primarily used for? So the answer is this, automating business processes. I'll jump on to the next question quickly. What are the benefits of using RPA? Most of them got it right. The last one. Here also most of them got it right. So I will reveal the leaderboard. Mahesh is number 1. Great Mahesh. Tarun.
Yeah, Rakesh, I think we're running out of time. I think so. Please let's have the survey now.
Yes, sir. Just a second. I'll just start the survey right away in front of you. Yes, you will be able to see the survey right now. You can answer.
I think, yeah, we should be done.
Yes.
I'm just cognizant of the fact that, people may have other meetings.
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. And we will also be preparing a report. So we'll share that with the participants and the panelists. Thank you so much once again.